Hello everyone, I'm Alice.
I'm Rob.
And we were just talking all things Multiverse of Madness, you know, the upcoming Marvel film, and we were talking about our theories, and we thought that you guys might want to come along and hear what our most intricate thoughts are. Like, what is going to happen? What is going to happen in this movie? How likely is it? And
cameos, maybe.
And you know what? We're kind of putting, like, our bets down here. Will we be right?
Are we putting money on it? Is that what we decided?
Let's put a coffee on it.
Okay, I can live with that.
Whoever gets the most theories right gets a coffee.
Right.
And if we both lose adequately, we just can drown our sorrows in a drink.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right.
Yeah.
Well.
Okay. Well, I think.
Get started?
Let's get started.
First of all, we have my theory, which is, I think this is almost a combo theory, but I think we're going to see the return of Tommy and Billy.
And
so,
Tommy and Billy are...
Tommy and Billy being Wanda and Vision's kids that were created with her part of the Mind Stone and her powers in general. So my theory that kind of came on top of that was the fact that this is going to finalize the Young Avengers. So we'll have everyone we need, and then the next movie that's going to be announced after Multiverse, maybe not immediately, but very close afterwards, will be that there's going to be a Young Avengers movie. Kate Bishop now as the Hawkeye. We'll have Tommy and Billy as like the magic people. Ironheart's coming, so she might be the final piece of the puzzle. But by this point, we'll probably Yelena. I don't know if she's going to go down the Dark Avengers.
It's more of a Dark Avengers character.
Yeah,
for Yelena.
she could be Dark Avengers, or she could be Young Avengers, or she could switch sides halfway through. And then we've also met Young Patriot.
It's just Patriot.
The
in
Patriot.
The comics, yeah. What's his name? Elijah Bradley from Falcon Winter Soldier.
Correct.
But the thing is, if we're talking comic book accurate Young Avengers, the only one that hasn't been introduced yet is Hulkling.
Who will probably come out in She-Hulk.
No, more likely Secret Invasion. Because
that's right, because he's a Skrull, but they could change it.
Well, obviously the stories don't exactly follow what is shown in the comics, and you know, when you look at like Captain Marvel, that film, there's a lot of like the Captain Marvel lore, both with Carol Danvers and Marvel wrapped up in that. So,
well, actually, I even forgot. We've also got Kamala Khan, and after Multiverse of Madness, we'll have America Chavez.
Yes.
So that almost is enough for a team.
Yes.
And I also think that Tommy and Billy are going to come back as like 17, 18. Like, they're not coming back as their WandaVision age, because you're limited by what you can do with kids, both on set, as we know, and also just in general, because you can't really give them, you know, that intensive romantic storylines, violence, all
Plus,
that
they're probably
stuff.
going to want to, replace them with more named actors, which we know they did with Cassie Lang.
Cassie Lang's another one.
Yeah.
So maybe not Young Avengers immediately. Maybe it'll be after like the Marvels, or maybe Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 once they bring in Adam Warlock.
I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Because he is meant to be a big part of the Avengers, but he hasn't like showed up yet. So
Adam Warlock's an interesting one. Like he's kind of been in the back of a lot of comic book readers' minds for close to a decade now, because of how tied he is to a lot of the Infinity Stone stuff. So the fact that like Thanos is now no longer a thing kind of puts a question mark hanging over the Adam Warlock question. But it's a lock that Billy and Tommy will be back, just based on the fact that like they're quite an iconic duo within the comics, quite iconically tied to Scarlet Witch, and we're going down the path of seeing her maybe become a villain in Multiverse of Madness.
Well, she's just signed on for a 7-year deal.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't know if it's 7 picture or 7 year, but I think the intention is that she's going to get her own trilogy. So I don't know if she's just going to
be a Scarlet Witch trilogy?
A Scarlet Witch trilogy, which will be cool. Because the thing is, we actually haven't had a female superhero trilogy yet. We've had origin stories, sure. Yeah. We've had, one origin story. We've had some, like, TV shows.
Have any of them actually been set in real time? Because both Wonder Womans were technically prequels. Yeah. Captain Marvel was a prequel. Black Widow was a prequel.
Yeah, this will be the first one that's not the Marvels will be the first one.
The Marvels will be the first one, it's not a prequel.
But we've already established that Tommy and Billy can age quickly, and I think that was Marvel being like, cool, when we bring them back, they'll be 16, 17. They've aged in the, like, vortex. But let's move on to theory number 2, yours.
I would say that it's possible that we're going to have, this is all but confirmed pretty much throughout, all the internet leaks, but the appearance of the X-Men in some form. Specifically, I think it'll relate to the House of M comic, mainly because, we know Scarlet Witch is a very big player in that, and there's a lot of discussion as to how they're going to bring the mutants into the MCU. Now, I think based on how they've done it previously with all these other things, like, oh, Doctor Strange and a bunch of wizards. Oh, you just never saw him before. So I kind of assumed that if we're going under that logic, we were just, mutants, they've been a thing. We haven't spoken about them because we've been following the Avengers. That's a simple way to do it, but we're so fixated on continuity now that I think with this multiverse movie happening, they're going to maybe use it as a window to introduce the mutants and do a reverse House of M. House of M specifically was a 2005 miniseries where the Scarlet Witch rewrote reality to give everyone what they most wanted, and they couldn't remember the previous life. Scarlet Witch kind of ends it by turning everything back, but she very famously declared that there were no more mutants, so that all of the mutants lose their powers other than a handful, and big surprise, it's the core X-Men that still have their powers. But they're probably going to do some form of that, or at least I think they might, where maybe they interact with the X-Men Fox universe.
I think that there's going to be a mix. I think it's going to be a mix of they've always been around because they established in WandaVision that Elizabeth Olsen or Wanda was a baby witch, and so I think they're established that her and Pietro had powers of some kind.
They basically said it in WandaVision, when Agatha Harkness was you kind of had powers from birth.
And they can't really be millions of people have come through the vortex and now we have X-Men, we have mutants. So I think it's just going to be people who had powers, but these are specifically because of a genetic disorder or whatever. Because I think the thing is, they're also not going to really be able to do the only storyline that the X-Men movies have ever done, which is, they have powers, they're different from us, let's, be against them now. Yeah. Because everyone in Marvel is a superhero. Yeah. But speaking of which, let's go with theory number 3. Speaking of new established superheroes, we've got the first appearance of Fantastic Four. I think that they're kind of doing the Illuminati sort of thing with that scene in this trailer where he's going up against the council. Now the question is, have the Fantastic Four been there the whole time and we haven't known? Have they been in another universe, or are they created, or it turns out they're not a part of that scene at all? I think though we are going to see some form of Fantastic Four.
Would that not overshadow Doctor Strange?
The thing is, they've already done insane reshoots. Doesn't it have 70 something characters in this movie? It's got an insane amount already. I don't think you can, also for the fact that there's going to be 4 or 5 different Doctor Stranges in this. At least
Zombie
there's
Strange,
there's
Dark
3 confirmed.
Strange, yeah.
We've got regular Strange, we've got Dark Strange, and then we've got Defender Strange, who is probably definitely becoming Zombie Strange, based on the costume and everything. Speaking of castings but getting to the casting of the Fantastic Four, I have a very strong feeling that it's going to be fan favourites, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt as Mr. Fantastic and Susan Storm, respectively. I think that it wouldn't make very much sense for them to go in another direction because we already know that both of them are open to being superheroes, having
nearly tried to as well.
With John Krasinski as Captain America and Emily Blunt as both Black Widow and Agent Carter.
Which I didn't know about the Agent Carter one.
So she was I don't know if it's she auditioned for it or she was on the list and she didn't quite make it. And so I think that they're already primed. We know that they have chemistry because A, they're married, and B, they can act together because of A Quiet Place. And they're happily married, I should say, because being married means nothing. Except it means everything. So I think that they also are the right age range. So it makes sense to me to have them. They also haven't been a superhero in any way, shape or form yet, unless you count Jack Ryan, and that's a TV show. Yeah. So he's already gotten buff. We've already got, and she's gotten buff for Edge of Tomorrow and the sequel that's currently filming. She did
very well in Edge of Tomorrow.
She did, and there's a sequel currently filming.
There's a sequel of Edge of Tomorrow?
Yeah, there's a sequel. It's called Edge of Tomorrow. No, I don't know. But back to the theories. So I think it would make sense for them to do it, and then also I think that the dynamic between Tom Holland and John Krasinski that's a good age bracket change.
Very good mentor relationship.
Good mentee relationship as well, because we thought about potentially that Spider-Man is going to have that dynamic with Mr. Fantastic, given that all of his mentors are dead.
Yeah, and I mean on that point, I guess the if I was to put my Kevin Feige hat on, the thing that I would have expected them to do in introducing the Fantastic Four, this is an alternate idea here, is because John Watts directed the Spider-Man movies and we know he's directing the Fantastic Four, I would kind of imagine that if they sneak in the 4th Spider-Man movie before Fantastic Four, maybe they give John Watts the opportunity to introduce the Fantastic Four in that film ahead of their own film, kind of like what they did with Black Panther
and
Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War, which, I mean, that's the way I would do it and not have this whole convoluted multiverse crap, but I mean, this is the world we live in now with these superhero
I think
movies.
if you could do it and you can do it well, like they've already tested that.
Yeah, and I mean, Raimi will do it well.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, I think it's going to be really interesting in how they portray it. And speaking of, you know, Raimi doing things well, let's go to your next theory.
Yes.
Which is a very comic book heavy one.
Yes, so this one is rooted pretty much in like the lore of Doctor Strange, because I mean, outside of the multiverse stuff, you know, it's still a Doctor Strange movie, and we're probably going to get deeper into his world. So I reckon we will have the first appearance of, I believe it's pronounced the Vishanti or Vishanti. I'm sure the movie will, you know, clarify how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
But essentially, they're like another collection of giant magic cosmic gods. You know, Marvel Universe is full of all these cosmic gods, but they're another one. What they do is they kind of, I think, oversee or choose or whatever, something like that, who the Sorcerer Supreme in each realm is. So it's almost like the Sorcerer Supreme's boss kind of thing. And, you know, one of them is Agamotto, who we know, you know, there's the Eye of Agamotto, which is Doctor Strange's necklace thing. So there's that, and I think there's also Hogarth and Ashtur, the other two. And they're like giant anthropomorphic animals, like one's a giant tiger.
Hogarth from a fantasy film?
Maybe.
Yeah. It's like a pig person.
I know there was Hogarth Hughes from the Iron Giant, and
No,
he's a little
I'll
boy.
look it up later,
So yeah, we're probably going to see them, because that'll lead us into the other dimensions with other Sorcerers Supremes. One of which is this lady named like Cleo. I can't remember her name, but she's like Doctor Strange's sort of kind of love interest. She's the Sorcerer Supreme of a place called the Dark Dimension.
It does seem like from the trailer they're kind of like putting to bed the Rachel McAdams love interest.
She's in there.
She's in it, but she's very clearly getting married to someone else.
Yeah, I assumed when the original movie was coming out, I assumed she was her.
Oh!
Yeah, that's who I thought she was going to be.
Maybe in an alternate dimension.
Yeah.
Like maybe she, in another like dimension, she's...
a variant of her?
Yeah, variant of her is that character. And speaking of which, we've also still got the whole Baron Mordo thing going on. Like, what is he doing? Why is he there? Is he the reason for... Like, is he serving the Vishanti? Has he also made this like warped deal of like, I'll get rid of all the sorcerers and we can start again sort of thing?
I mean, maybe. I'm still a little confused as to what he means by too many sorcerers. Like, I think
it's just classic hypocritical villain stuff.
Yeah. So he hasn't, you know, shirked off his powers or whatever. So,
he's just grown some cool dreads.
There's too many people in this movie.
No, see, you think that, but don't fall for it, because the thing is, it's like Marvel knows what they're doing, and I will stand by that. Like in Kevin Feige, we trust.
Well, in this case, in Sam Raimi, we trust, and I'm just glad that he's here. This is
Raimi.
the only Marvel film where they've actually had the director as the headliner in the trailer.
Yeah.
So I'm really,
well, that means
really
it's going to
keen
be
on that.
horrifying, which is good. Speaking of like final theory, is and this is something that's already kind of been done and is already going to be done in Quantum Mania for sure, but we think that maybe the after credit scenes is going to begin to seed specifically Kang the Conqueror,
who we already saw in
we saw a variant of him. We saw the good guy version of him,
good guy,
well, the goodest version of him, where it was like, this is the only way to ensure that my variants don't take over the world is by not allowing variants in general.
Yes,
but we haven't actually seen Kang the Conqueror yet, because we've seen his statue.
Yeah.
Which all we know from the end of Loki is that there is one. I don't know if Loki's in the right universe, or maybe that whole time throughout the show he was actually in an alternate dimension and now he's in our dimension. Like you'd kind of
be like, with Kang the Conqueror, you're like ripe to have him be like the seeded villain for like all of these phases, because the thing about Kang is that he's got all of these variants of himself, and they've each like taken on their own like personalities and feelings, and they all have interpersonal relationships with each other, like antagonistic relationships with each other. So Kang's obviously the classic one, but there's like Immortus, which is another one. And then there's bloody, Rama Tut, who went back in time and became the pharaoh of Egypt.
Well, did we actually get his name in Loki?
No,
of that one?
he was like, I forget.
He was like the teacher or
the unknown
the
or something. Yeah, he was
like
some
that.
stupid name.
Yeah.
But he was wearing Kang's clothes. He was Kang.
No, we know it was.
yeah.
But it wasn't Kang. It was it was Jonathan Myers who's going to be.
Yes,
Kang.
and he was hamming it up in this glorious
He
fashion.
was really good.
He was
but
excellent.
I wonder, it's like, is this going to be that Loki was actually set in, the in-between of worlds, and he's going to be able to use the Kang the Conqueror that we see has taken over the TVA.
Yeah.
He's going to use this in the same way in which they kind of seeded Thanos.
Yeah.
In the
He'll be the thing that they're seeding. Instead of just chasing around 6 rocks, we're chasing around 6 versions of the same villain.
Yeah, and we know he's showing up in Quantum Mania as well. So is it like, is he going to start screwing stuff up now that he's in because of Multiverse, and then that kind of gets seeded in Quantum Mania?
I will say, I find it very odd that that's going to be like the official first appearance of Kang, because those are comedy movies, and Kang is...
But I think he's going to be I think they're going down almost like the Hades from Hercules route with him as a villain.
Your favourite Disney film?
Well, not my favourite, but
close.
a very, very close, yes.
Mm-hmm.
God, Disney, please don't ruin the live action. Please, just keep the gospel music. Please.
Aren't the Russos doing it?
I don't know, are they?
Are they?
I don't know.
Someone look this up. Tell us.
We'll look this up later. We'll do that theory when that's coming out. But no, but I think that because we've already had the big bad, the very traditional big bad in Thanos, where it's like he's very powerful, he's very scary, but now I think what we need is a big bad who's very charismatic. That's what we're
Jonathan
missing.
Myers is charismatic.
He's charismatic. He's already proven he's charismatic.
He's in my favourite movie of the year.
Well, exactly. Yeah. How Did They Fall?
How Did They Fall?
And I think he obviously has a lot of talent, and he obviously has a lot of charisma, and I think it'll be really cool to have a villain where it's like, oh, I like him, but he's a bad guy. Because Loki has kind of been that, but they've just made him a hero now.
Yeah.
So it'll be cool to actually have a villain like him who ends up actually being a bad guy through and through. Like, he has no intention in, doing things for the right or having feelings about it. It's like, no, I'm in charge, but I'm kind of cool. So we've got number 1, the return of Tommy and Billy. Probably older, at least 16, 17.
Yeah.
Number 2, we've got the first appearance of the X-Men. Specifically, we've got the almost a reverse House of M where they bring them in, and then potentially also Radcliffe as Wolverine.
Oh, we didn't mention that, yeah.
We did very, very briefly, but it was written down, so I'm mentioning it.
Yeah.
Number 3, we've got the first appearance of the Fantastic Four, and specifically that Emily Blunt and John Krasinski are going to be our Mr. Fantastic and Susan Storm, and the other 2, we'll find out. Will Zac Efron be Johnny Storm? Come back another time. And then number 4, we've got first appearance of the Vishanti. Potentially Cleo.
I'm going to Google it later to find out how it's
I
pronounced.
think it's Cleo. And then finally, our after credits theory is that it will begin to seed Kang the Conqueror, specifically that variant of Jonathan Myers' character /
Yes.
So we've got those 5.
And we'll see how many we get right.
We'll see how many we get right. But I think for now, Rob, I think the shot's almost set up, so we should probably head.
We should probably head back.
All right. Well, thanks for taking a break with Clean Slate.